Hi guys, today we are going to learn another interesting thing, how to add clothing simulation data to one of our costume pieces on our MetaHuman. Let's dive in. So here we are inside Unreal Engine, and today we are going to add some simulation, or let's just say flutter, to our denim jacket so that it reacts to the wind in a similar way as this foliage is reacting. And bear in mind, if you are new to this video, this is not a fitting tutorial per se. I have talked about fitting garments to MetaHumans in my previous videos, and I'm going to attach links in the description. Also, if you want to understand how to make a MetaHuman or a custom MetaHuman from scratch, I'll add a link to that video too in the description. So I have my MetaHuman in my level, and I used MetaTailor to fit this outfit to my MetaHuman. So now I'm going to go into my skeletal mesh asset, and I can see that I have all my different elements of my wardrobe as separate pieces. So this is the most important factor that needs to be kept in mind when we are looking at cloth simulation, that whichever garment piece we are trying to simulate needs to be its own standalone mesh. So in this case, we are trying to do the jacket, and we see that we have the jacket that is not dependent on any other piece, and this is the most important thing. So now this is fairly simple from here. So I'm going to right click on my jacket, and I'm going to select create clothing data from section. And here I'm also going to select my MetaHuman's physics asset. So for this, I just have to type my MetaHuman character's name. Again, if you want to understand how to make a MetaHuman from scratch, I'll add the link to that tutorial in the description. You can check that out. But since the name of my character is Aman, I'm just going to type that, and I'm going to get to that physics asset, and I'm going to click create. So after this, I can just click on activate cloth paint, and then you just click here, and you'll see that it is now ready to be painted. So now it opens a clothing window here for you. If it doesn't, you can always go into here and type window and type clothing, and you will get this window here. So I've docked my clothing window here, and the first thing that I need to look at is a brush, because since we're going to paint simulation, so we're going to look, this is my brush. So we're looking at a brush, and the important things to notice here is that the paint value. So if I paint something here, paint value is 100, which means that the cloth is going to simulate 100%. That means that it's going to flutter like a handkerchief. That's just 100 means it's free to move. It's not hooked or tethered to anything. Paint value 0 would mean that it would not simulate at all, and it is as solid as a rock. So we usually keep it at 100 for the parts we need to flutter, and if we look at this code, we can see that okay, the parts at least underneath the belt can have some kind of simulation on them. So I'm going to set my brush to 100. This is the size of the brush's radius. I usually keep it at a 10, like depending on the size of your garment and the size of the simulation that you're trying to paint. I leave the strength as is, the fall off as is. And the other thing that I look at apart from the brush is a smoothing tool. There are 4 kinds of brushes. The brush just paints as is. A smoothing tool kind of gives you a fall off where from the places of like solid places where it can't simulate, like the shoulders, edges of the shoulders, or right around the collar where it's like tightly stuck to the body. So a smooth brush comes in handy when we have to just gradually go from places of simulation to places of no simulation. And after that, there's another brush, fill and gradient. Gradient also does a similar thing, like you're gradually going away from simulation to no simulation. And fill is if you want to fill the entire thing with all simulation. So usually the most preferred and the most commonly used tools are the brush and the smooth tool, because when you're doing especially wardrobe related stuff. So I'm just going to set my brush at 10 and my paint value at 100, and I'm just going to paint this a little. Black means nothing and white means full simulation. And obviously if it gives you a little bit of a gray or something here, that is because your cloth might have folded vertices here. So don't worry about that. You can just always press Alt and your left mouse button, move this around, make the radius a little smaller, say 2, and just paint these things out. Once this looks okay, so I'm going to go to my other brush, smooth, and I'm going to change my radius to say a 6. and I'm going to paint some sort of smoothness here. It looks okay to me for now, so I'm just going to click on deactivate cloth paint. Now I'm just going to right click on my jacket and click on apply clothing data and just select my clothing data. And I see it has kind of simulated, but it's kind of going through my trousers. So here the interesting bit is that Unreal gives us a chaos clothing solver that solves these kind of clothing simulations right inside our skeletal mesh editor. So I have to do nothing and just go into my chaos clothing config. I'll find it right here after I've applied my clothing data and I've deactivated the cloth paint mode. I'll be inside my chaos clothing config. So I can just click here and it'll give me different kinds of things like mass properties, density. And density is something that a lighter cloth will flutter a lot more, like a handkerchief will flutter a lot more than a denim jacket. In this case, a denim jacket is denser than the trousers. So all these things affect how much the cloth piece reacts to environmental properties like winds, etc. And again, we have other kinds of properties like edge stiffness, bending stiffness. Edge stiffness again would be, again, I'm just giving you a lame example, like how stiff is my edge on top, the edge that is tethered. And then there's area stiffness, how stiff is my cloth overall. And then there are environmental properties here like the damping coefficient, local damping coefficient. I usually don't use these because I'll show you in a bit why. I add a wind actor directly to my scene. These are micro control parameters that can help you to actually achieve the kind of simulation you're looking on your cloth piece depending on the kind of story that you're trying to tell. So here, since my cloth is going through another cloth piece and this is not ideal, so this is a collision problem, like the collision is not right. So I also have collision properties here, and this is the thickness of my collision that I can directly control from here. So at 1, this is just going through and through, so I would try to increase this a bit, maybe say make it 3, and boom, now my cloth is colliding correctly and it looks just right. And here also we have a variety of different properties like the friction coefficient and self-collision spheres. If you want to understand all these properties in detail, I'm going to attach another video in the description by a creator called Nova Effectus, who explains all these things very visually and very intuitively. So now I'm happy with how my cloth looks and feels. So I'm just going to save this. I'm going to go back into my level, and I'm just going to press simulate. And you see that the cloth is fluttering a bit. Now, obviously, exaggeration now for the sake of, say, looking cinematic. I want this jacket to flutter a lot more. So for that, I can just exit my simulation for once, just set up a wind actor, go into my actors panel here, type wind, and it gives me a directional wind source. I can just drag and drop this in my level, just like any static mesh, and I'm pressing G to toggle between my gizmos and no gizmos. And this blue arrow is the direction of the wind. If you look closely, I can just move these things around. This blue arrow tells me the direction of the wind. Also, I can just put it anywhere. It's a directional source, so it doesn't matter as much. Only the direction matters, not the place so much in the scene. I can also change the different properties here, like the strength of the wind. Suppose if I make it 1 and I make the speed, say, as 3. You can play around with these different factors like the minimum gust amount, the maximum gust amount, the radius, how much radius we want the gust to be affected by, and so on and so forth. It's always nice to explore these different properties and see what they can do for you. But for the sake of demonstration, I think we're good. So I'm just going to press simulate. And you see that there's flutter in my wind. I can increase the speed, say I can just make it say 5. And you see it's fluttering even more. See, this is my direction. My wind is going from left to right, screen left to screen right. I can change the strength to say 2. I can change the speed to say 7, exaggerate it a bit. And if I go back into my cloth asset, and if I change the density, say from 0.35 to 0.8, save it, go back. Now you'll see that for the same amount of wind, it's fluttering a lot less. So this is how you can play around with different factors and decide on the kind of simulation you're looking to get for your cloth. So alright guys, thank you for sticking through for another video. In the next one, we'll see how to make custom hairstyles for our MetaHumans. And please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you.